BullCaster, a talk show for all crypto bulls. Here we're to discuss the most exciting industry topics with the best industry experts, influencers, and remarkable personalities. I'm Constantin Kogan, co-founder of BullPerks, and in today's show, we'll explore how Web3 will change the world together with our special guest, Miles McMorrow. Miles is co-founder and head of Web3 at Circus, and organizer of next major conference in London, Blockchain Gaming, and Enter the Metaverse events. Miles is an experienced conference curator, events and sponsorship manager who is basically successful in events arena and the intersection of Web2 technology, and read more, I would say, research papers than I could think of, right? He's educated and then have over 10,000 professionals in in the last 2 years, so far in Web3. And I think that's all you have to know about Miles. The rest he will tell you more about his background. And thank you for being here with us.
No, I really very much appreciate the invite, and very excited to be speaking with the BullCaster community today. Just before I dive in, and as I mentioned to you, Constantin, my doorbell has just rung, so I'm going to fly very quickly. So I'm very sorry to everyone watching. Give me 1 second to let this person into my house, and then I'm with you all, and I'll give you a quick intro. My sincere apologies.
It's another special guest, so let's do it.
Just as a heads up, that was not even who I was expecting. So what a nightmare. So that's still to come.
So that's listen, let's jump right into it. Your background is quite interesting, and you're on a journey to educate a lot of people. I think that's what we need in Web3. The numbers right now are not high, in the people who are using VR and AR industry applications. I'm not even go to metaverse. We've all seen the Depradar report, which is not very promising. But on the other hand, we're seeing a lot of opportunities coming up. So first of all, let us know a little bit about what led you to be interested in VR, AR, and then obviously go to Web3.
100%. So I'm Miles. I'm one of the co-founders of Circus. We've been around for about 7 years. So we've been running events in user experience and product design, and working with tech innovation, technologies like VR, AR, and chatbots, AI, and machine learning throughout that time. So this is, these technologies aren't new. This is probably the most important thing to start with, is it's not a new tech space. The Web3 blanket is kind of an umbrella for this convergence of technologies, but I'll get into that in a minute. And so our background comes from working with big enterprises in the Web2 world, and I put that in inverted commas, because it's a movement that we're seeing, to help showcase how big enterprise brands, pretty industry agnostically, so from Amazon to the BBC to Netflix, we've worked with Facebook or Meta now. And many brands in all sorts of sectors to showcase how they were designing products over the last 7 years that help end users to use the products and services in more innovative ways, and make sure that the products are designed for the user to be intuitive. The user experience wave is what really drove forward Web 2. If we talk about Web 1 being, very basic browser-based sort of email-led kind of, world, then Web 2 was allowing social networks and experiences that were designed for the end user. And so we've been helping brands to showcase how they're doing that. And then from there, we were running events. Started it with 12 people in a pub meetup, and that scaled up to running events in London, Manchester, Amsterdam, Berlin, and New York, all talking about this user experience innovation wave. And we've educated over 100,000 people in the user experience world. And then the pandemic came along, as it did for everyone, and we were moved into the online space. So where we came at Web3 was realizing that, this seems like these technologies, especially the blockchain, and NFTs, are giving more and more agency to end users. It's allowing them to have more ownership of their digital selves and their assets and their kind of private internet, and then go out and monetize what they can do with their data rather than giving it to big centralized parties. So that's what led us to be intrigued by exploring this Web3 industry. And when the pandemic came around and we moved online, we decided to start a new team focused on okay, how are these technologies going to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years? So for us, it started with an NFT summit. We then ran a metaverse conference. We then ran the Web3 summit online. And then we ran a DeFi conference. And now we're coming back to the in-person event. So that's kind of how we started and where we got to today. And the really important thing for us is that the whole goal for us here is use the connections we've got. We're working with enterprise level clients in innovation, product, technology. And our goal is, why not bring these guys along and help educate them, educate the Web2 world as much as these kind of the Web3 often ecosystem or echo chamber, right? To make sure we're bridging that gap and helping onboard them to the potential of these technologies beyond speculation and hype. So that's where we come at this from. We've got some great events coming up this year, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit of detail later.
Yeah, and I think it's very important because, again, we're let's not forget that the entire, there was several reports recently, actually was in Bloomberg the day before yesterday, where even in Bloomberg, they were trying to pinch on the top executives in the crypto world, from crypto.com and Pantera and many others, what's happening in the market, right? And the reply was very simple, right now, today, the oldest, so to speak, the most successful cryptocurrency is Bitcoin, right? When we have more than 200 million people who are somehow holding the combination of Bitcoin and altcoins, right? And then there's a new wave of people who are getting sold into NFTs and Web3, to whatnot on different levels, right? There are many levels how you can describe this entire industry. And it's still very early. 200 million people, users is not a lot. If you think about it, that's a lot. We need 1 billion people who would use it. Then is going to be a completely different factor. So with this, let's talk about adoption, because you covered a lot about Web3, the transformation and the potential, right? I want to ask you about the barriers, right? What are the people? We have those fancy marketing words, right? Interoperability, sustainability, usability. What do you see in practicality? What experiences from the people who visit your conference are they more excited about?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I have the massive benefit of organizing events of meeting some incredible people who are pioneering this movement. And so whenever I'm sharing information, I'm just doing lip service to all the great work that they're doing when I'm talking about these things. But because I've had this kind of broad opportunity to speak to loads of different people, I've managed to understand quite a lot about the barriers that exist now between where we are and where we want to get to. Someone who I respect a lot is the chap called John Egan. He's the founder of a company called L'Atelier BNP Paribas, and I can share more if we're doing a follow-up. I could send a link to them. But he always talks about this, let's take the most, if we're talking about metaverse, what is this kind of mass adoption of Web3? And the metaverse being this spatial web that's going to converge all these technologies. And he always uses this this idea of look at one of the most successful kind of immersive world games that exists today. Let's talk about Red Dead Redemption 2, right? It was incredible in the landscape, in the gameplay, in the adventures and the depth and the kind of fabric of the universe that they built there. That took 7 years to develop a game that was just Web 2 based, that was still a sandbox kind of enclosed, encaptured game. That was 7 years, right? What we're talking about with Web3 and the emergence of the metaverse is way beyond this. We're talking about creating a whole new spatial web that's perhaps mapped to our entire planet, that enables us to immerse ourselves, with new layers of information using augmented reality, lenses. And, Apple and Snapchat and everyone's building these lenses now that we can use to augment the world around us. We're also talking about embedding the blockchain as a technical infrastructure that will allow us to conduct DeFi protocols and protect our assets and build this whole world, build this whole infrastructure that empowers end users to have this kind of more secured environment. So let's talk about some of those terms that you outlined here, right? The question of whether the metaverse, I guess, needs to be Web3. So like all brands are already thinking of the need for blockchain underpinning infrastructure from all the conversations I'm having. That's a fact. They're investing in it. It's R&D. At this stage, there's a lot of toe dipping. But in order for the kind of decentralized world to be more widely adopted, we need to think about some better regulations and standardization. Sorry, that promised doorbell has just rang. So I'm very sorry. I'll pick this up exactly where I was. Give me 1 second.
Easter bunnies are attacking Miles. Okay.
Directly where I was, because I want to make sure we cover these off, and I know we've got a short time. So we talked about the need for standardization and regulation, right? And there's some incredible bodies who are coming together to create this stuff. So there's the Metaverse Standards Forum. There's been a recent initiative put forward by all the decentralized metaverse builders who are creating this open interoperability initiative. And these sorts of movements are going to help us to realize the adoption of this, because there will be a set of rules and guidelines that secure the kind of the metaverse more broadly, or the multiverse, you might call it, because everyone at the minute is building these kind of mini metaverses. And so when we talk about Web3, what is Web3? It's actually an amalgamation of lots of technologies. The metaverse is kind of the spatial web equivalent of kind of converging these technologies, but Web3 really it's the blockchain, VR, AR, and the spatial web that kind of, and that the VR, AR is the lens through which we see it, but it's also IoT, cloud computing, that's going to enable us to tie to have less latency and more data connectivity, so that we can actually move all of this forward. But the fact that we need it to be better regulated and have standards that tie this all together will drive the confidence that will allow brands to enter the space. And I think that's the biggest barrier right now, is there's a lot of of toe dipping, as I said, but we still need to test all of these securities too. Like when we talk about regulations, we need people to understand, we need to address the dangers of digital assets, financial fraud and privacy issues, like the world of deep fakes that is coming with these, emerging AIs. So there's a lot here. And that's not even to talk about what you mentioned with scalability and computing power. So like we're being really pragmatic about where we are now. And if we tie back to that conversation about Red Dead Redemption, it taking 7 years, we're probably 5 to 10 years at a minimum before we reach a space where a true adoption happens, when the VR and AR headsets aren't as bulky and are more portable, and the 5G connection is more widely spread. Then we can start seeing an environment that allows brands, which will drive consumers to enter this space with more confidence. So I'll leave that there on that question, as I know I was gone for a good 5 minutes as well. And again, apologies viewers for that.
No worries. So let's jump into it. Like I think from the pragmatic standpoint of view, you mentioned that you help brands to actually have this pathway, like you're almost like a gateway to get them inside the Web3 and world, and specifically into metaverse, right? Let's briefly talk about the practical part of it, right? How do you actually get, like, can you give us some case studies and examples, 1 or 2?
Well, I mean, let's address like the why it's interesting to brands first, right? This is a new multi-trillion-dollar frontier for brands. We have to accept that when there is a new more spatial web, there's an opportunity for brands to go beyond kind of these content-based opportunities to engage with consumers and look at new ways to deliver authentic experiences, build communities, and go beyond that, build a world and a universe and a lore that sits behind your brand, and then use that and gamify. And obviously gaming has been a huge gateway to the metaverse. Use that to gamify the experience of your brand. One thing, if we take the fact, there's a statistic, and you mentioned there's a lot of reports I've been digesting. Like I was reading that like 74% of like the Gen Z generation, they're already in ownership of digital assets. Yes. And it's already and this is one of the big barriers when we talk about NFT and blockchain and stuff. Is the barrier to entry, so much of it is that you have to be almost semi-crypto native. You need to understand how to get a wallet and how to get, the crypto that you need to then be able to change it to a token to get onto a specific platform. And then if we substitute some of the security of the blockchain for a more user-centric login, then we are leaving vulnerabilities in which is something that the blockchain is there to tackle. So if this growing trend exists, and if we look beyond the kind of JPEGing to the actual utilities that these assets can offer, then now we're looking at an environment where say take the fashion industry, right? It's such an interesting opportunity, or an apparel in general. People in the Gen Z bracket and generally will want to look as cool in the metaverse as they do in the real world. And it's such and 3D assets unshackles the creative potential for brands to create fashion in new ways that is completely beyond the physics of the world in the real space allows us. So there's brands like the Fabricant, Nike and Fabricant, DressX, and many other brands who are already building kind of whole digital fashion houses specifically for this. I know an artist, I know a fashion designer called Danit Peleg, and she's using NFTs to create 3D printed fashion items that can then be like reprinted by the person who owns that NFT in forever for the future. So from a sustainability perspective, they can wear that forever. And if you talk about sustainability, let's talk about a fashion item, or use even an AR lens over the physical items you're wearing that allows you to wear digital fashion all the time in the real world or the metaverse, and it means that you're not spending on the fast fashion so often. So it's really interesting.
I'm afraid like we would love to touch this particular angle, but because we had a little bit less time, so we probably I want to leave the opportunity for listeners to ask you direct questions, because I think
the one thing I might add on that, just very last thing, is just the how. Is when we look at, because I mean, we talk about how do we onboard brands, and it's like there is a job here to be done to reduce the friction of the on-ramps. Like, can we make a more simple model that allows brands to plug and play? And that means SDKs and APIs that is more simple for the transition. If you come to the event I'm talking about later, we have Consensus's head of APIs and SDKs, Diana Patel, speaking about that. So a really interesting topic, and I'll park that there.
No, for sure. Listen, I'm sure that I mean, this is a topic for a separate podcast, right? So
that's true.
Right now we want to get straight to the point, for some of the questions that people are asking. Let's do blitz, right? So 1 minute answer for per each question. So those questions were collected from YouTube, Twitter, and many other places. So I'm just going to read the name and of the person who's asking and the question. So Captain Huddle is asking, what's the main problem in the metaverse right now that's delaying mass adoption, and how can we solve this?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. I mean, if we're honest, like the metaverse as it stands, if they're centralized and decentralized, the decentralized metaverses, whilst they're building something much more intricate and giving more agency to end users, the player base is very low. So like we have to tackle the issues of the issues around sustainability and questions and security that come with the metaverse. These are some of the regulations and standards. These are the biggest barriers right now. Once we have unified standards that allow people to build spaces that are interoperable, meaning you can take your digital self from one environment to another, and there are understandings between different brands and metaverse builders, then we'll be able to see a bigger mass adoption, because there'll be more confidence, especially in brands, bringing the brands into these environments that people know and trust. Trust is a key point here. How do we foster trust in the metaverse, in the infrastructure of the metaverse, and then once we've achieved that, then we'll be in a position to see a higher number of users and tackle these issues of scalability, which allow many players to join one metaverse all together, because that's another huge issue. If we look at Fortnite, you've got 100 players in one sharded environment, then 100 in another. How do we bring all of these together to achieve billions? So these are a lot of issues that need to be tackled, but they're all being worked on.
So Omar Yusuf is asking, in your opinion, is it better for Web3 to achieve full decentralization, or would you prefer a hybrid approach where there are some centralized agents?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an advocate of having full ownership of my data. That's the first thing. Is like, I mean, there's protocols like Dfinity or Brave Browser and other such Web3 protocols that are building platforms that allow you to house your data, own it, and monetize it. The current model allows centralized bodies like Facebook, like Google to have your data, use it, and in the metaverse, when there's so many more data points to pull on, that level of data information is an interesting one. So I'm a big fan of having control of that data in a more focused way. So I would like to see that, but I think there is value. I mean, centralized infrastructures, I guess, they're important. It's the world we live in today. Like, it's going to be a migration, and maybe one day we'll see a full decentralized world, but I can't read the future. There's
we're asking about the present. We're not asking about the future. We're asking about your personal preferences. So imagine we're going to play Russian roulette right now. So imagine you have literally one sentence to answer, right? And if you're wrong, you're dead. Same period. So decentralization or hybrid model?
Decentralization more so, and I think hybrid is, hybrid will help us in the short term.
Perfect. Okay, agreed. Damon, I don't know if I'm reading it correctly from LinkedIn. He's asking, we hear from the media that the current tech is obsolete to create a full metaverse and attract participants. Do you think this is true? What's the next step for tech?
Okay. I mean, tech can be software and hardware, right? And different, there's different conversations here. But when we talk about immersion, VR and AR headsets, as of now, there's new announcements. I mean, Meta's just released their new VR Pro Quest. They're getting lighter, they're getting more portable, but they're not there yet. I think if we want it to be, they need to be as lightweight as the ones I'm wearing right now. Better still, like, can they sit in my, I say better still, but like now we're talking about becoming semi-cyborgs. So like if they could get in my eye and just like I see it, the less that we have to handhold, the better. And then, I mean, yeah, the technology is not like the infrastructure of the blockchain is incredible, but we're not there yet. So there needs to be standardization and movements towards better infrastructures. And I know that wasn't a one word answer. So Russian roulette, bang, I'm dead.
Okay. Nakamoto-san is asking from YouTube, what is the biggest myth about Web3 you've seen on the internet? One. Or maybe not the biggest, maybe something that disturbs you even, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, probably this, I mean, sustainability is something I'm passionate about personally. So I want to tackle like, it's not a myth. There are computing powers and energy consumed by the blockchain, 100%. But the more it matures, there's new layers that are reducing the load, like the energy consumption per block, to mint NFTs, to create projects. And if we want to see utility of these technologies, we have to bring that down further and further and further. So like, we're not there yet, but sustainability is something that isn't going, like, it's not going to destroy the world as much as there are a million other factors that are already destroying the climate that we need to tackle first. If we can look at the blockchain as an opportunity to track energy consumption of big organizations and hold them accountable, then we can start looking at, then we can hold, then maybe we can start using the technology to tackle other bigger issues in climate and sustainability. So that's one that I would love, I really want to see developed upon.
Perfect. So Rafael Roy from YouTube is asking, what was your first experience with the metaverse? Do you have a moment where you realized this is the future and we're witnessing it?
I mean, I've played a lot of Fortnite game. I'm a bit of a gamer, and I was there for the Travis Scott concert. I thought that was just an incredible way to supersede something that was horrific, the pandemic that disconnected everyone. When there was an environment where many people, and I was on a headset with other players, other friends, and watching an artist and seeing that experience in a full immersive, I could jump around and be wherever I wanted. It was incredible, and that seemed like a Web 2 metaverse. But then I've walked around Second Life, and I've walked around Decentralized and the Sandbox, and seeing the brands and the players. When it is a busy event, and this is something you have to caveat for now, is when it's a busy event, it's incredible that you can actually engage with people in these new exciting ways. So that again for me is a really interesting opportunity, and I love the decentralized metaverse worlds.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing this. And Entertainment TV from YouTube is asking, how does TechCyrus help to and educate people on a large scale about our digital future, and what can other organizers learn from it?
Well, I mean, so we've got, we run conferences in person. They're paid events, and they're small capacity numbers because we're trying to generate networking at a very senior level. That's something we want to do, is get execs in the Web 2 world and the Web 3 world to meet and talk and hash out, opportunities for collaboration. And I think that's vital. But what we're doing beyond that as well is building a community in the background. We've created our own fun NFT membership with a lot of utility behind that, which is getting rolled out now. But the idea is create ongoing community events that consistently tackle major topics and get senior leaders to talk about it. If we can keep driving the education and awareness around some of, say, the myths or the most innovative tech progressions, we can help the masses at an exponentially larger scale with a global audience to understand the technology and where we're taking this. So, there's lessons to be learned in that. This community is and yes, we're in a crypto winter. Yes, we're in a recession. But all these companies are investing into this technology, and it is the future. All I want organizers to know is there aren't enough events on this. There won't be until we're seeing the full realization of these technologies, because they're coming. And anyone who is not investing their time into learning about it, it's like the .com boom again. You'd be remiss to not think about this for the future of your brand, or for the where you're going personally and what this will mean for yourself. So education's power, and the more we learn and know about this, the better.
Yeah, and we want to remind our listeners that we have still going on like giveaway of the 2 tickets for the blockchain gaming conference that will be November 28th in London, and then the 29th, right? The first one, the blockchain gaming conference, the second to enter the metaverse, right? So you can participate in it through our different social media channels whenever you're going to find it. So we're partnering with TechCyrus in it, both brands, BullPerks and GameSpot. We're giving out 3 BullPerks and 3 GameSpot out of your whitelist spots. So I hope you're gonna at least try out. And if you're in London, that's a no-brainer. You have to participate, right? So it's not even a question. And then you're gonna meet Miles in person, and many other best executives, thought leaders in the space. So we highly recommend it, right? We're gonna leave all the links in the description of once we finish the podcast. And again, we, as I mentioned, Miles, we want to keep it short and sweet, and that's why really appreciate your time. I know it was a bit challenging. You had some things happening in your life, madness, but this is how we live. This is Web3. It's dynamic. It's not perfect. We're still building. We are still educating. I really respect you for doing that, because we need more people and groups like you. It's still very early, and I do believe in 3 to 5 years we're gonna have a completely different atmosphere, and everything will be more efficient, more user friendly, and interoperable. And we'll come back to this podcast maybe in 5 years, and see how we were right or maybe not right.
100%. I mean, think about this: the metaverse one day will permeate. You will switch in one world from work to social to gaming to watching the sports you love, and you can choose your identity based on who you are, who you want to be, where you want to go, and meet the brands and the friends and the people you know and love. That's the vision for the future, right? And if we can, and it's not supposed to take over. Don't think of it as a dystopian world. Think of it as enhancing our lived experience. And if we can look at, using these technologies to empower people, and build a culturally diverse, equitable metaverse by empowering people to build themselves and create the world, especially these new generations, this universe could be incredible. So really excited for the future. If you want to come along and learn more about all of this at this event, we are building a mixing pot of global leaders who are pioneering this tech innovation. So come along, network. Anyone who joins today, use my personal discount code as well. I have one. If you win one of the lucky tickets, please, get involved. BullPerks would be great for you to have you along for free. Amazing. But if you can't, I'll give you 50% off of a ticket price anyway. So hit me up. Use my personal code. It's Miles, MYLES, and 50. And I'm sure, Constantin can follow up and share that to the community to access my personal discount for the event. But yeah, good luck to everyone in your own journey, building the metaverse, building Web3 protocols. And I'll see you all in 5 years when we see the fruits of the labor.
100%. Thank you everyone for joining BullCaster today, and we're going to see you at 3 p.m. UTC on YouTube Live, on all the other lives, in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miles.
Thanks for the invite. Bye for now, everyone.
Cheers.